In May of 2017, I, along with 4 other students of the tactical group, lived in Xizhou for a month as part of the Microcampus program. The goal of the program was to expand our experiential learning, personal growth, intercultural understanding, and positive impact on the world. During our time here, we were given the task to study something of high personal interest. I chose to study embroidery because of my interests towards art. In order to understand the change over time of bi-minority embroidered shoes, one must consider embroidery during the Mingguo time period, embroidery during the Cultural Revolution, and embroidery during the 21st century and beyond. Mingguo, the Republic of China, was the government installed after the Qing dynasty. During those times, small shoes were considered popular among wealthy women. Such as these small shoes Mr. Zhu, an antique dealer, acquired locally in Dali. When I first entered his store, I was excited by the grand embroidery collection he had. But the ones that caught my eye were not the exquisite headpieces, but a pair of simply embroidered shoes. These shoes required women to tuck in their toes, which limited their ability to walk. Mr. Zhu showed me photographs of wealthy Bai women during the Republic of China. I became intrigued in the photographs and the antique lifestyle it showed. These Bai women embroider their own shoes as a display of their wealth and skill. From my observations, bi-minority patterns tend to stand out from others because of their bright colors and flowers. They also embed metal strips on edges or in their embroidered pieces. During the Republic of China, bound feet and embroidery were a sign of beauty. I was shocked to learn that women were often judged by society and suitors by how well they embroider, and were considered dumb and useless if they couldn't. The Cultural Revolution marked a significant turn in Chinese history. During the 1970s, the new government imposed multiple reforms on the country and greatly influenced the art of embroidery. The reason I chose these pairs of shoes to represent the Cultural Revolution, although they were made recently, was that the pieces represented the influences of that time period, especially the maker of the shoes, Yang Nainai. I met her on our walking tour on the first day, and I visited her very often. Yang Nainai owns a small embroidery stand of shoes and trinkets for tourists. She told me how she is selling embroidery for her retirement, since she never received any formal education, which resulted in limited career options. I learned how feet binding was abolished after the reforms. Through my conversations with her, I realized how, due to the abolishment of feet binding, it opened up an opportunity for women to get a better place in a man's society, but it took away the time for embroidery. From Yang Nainai, I was inspired by her passion towards embroidery and her optimism towards life. To study modern embroidery, it was clear my first stop was Happy Embroidery. From Miss Lee, the owner of Happy Embroidery, an embroidery studio, I learned how modern embroiders made decorative wall hangings because people now prefer a more minimalistic lifestyle, which is why embroidered clothing don't make much money. From our conversation, it was clear Miss Lee holds a strong passion towards embroidery, but not as much towards the traditions. To appeal to tourists, there are embroidered pictures that depicts false impressions of Bai traditions, such as this one. I understand that it happens because very few tourists bother to understand the authentic culture of Xizhou. From what I have learned, I believe traditional bi-minority embroidery would eventually die out, since younger generations don't bother to learn the traditional art form. Hopefully, machine embroidery would continue to create traditional bi-minority styles to keep the memory of a once great art form alive. It is clear that with the rising industrialism, recreational art forms, no matter how beautiful or once prevalent, are facing an end. In conclusion, the Mingguo time period, the Cultural Revolution, and the 21st century are 3 time periods that greatly influenced the course of embroidered shoes of the bi-minority. It is terrible to see a tradition like this is dying out from the influence of tourism and industry, but it is important for us to see the things that come along with it, especially the opportunities, careers, and justice for a woman in a modern society. I will leave Xizhou full of new understandings and outlooks towards traditions and art.